Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today on episode 67,
you don't have to have it all figured out, especially early in your career. Do the thing that scares you a little bit, because you don't have to have it all figured out. You're not going to have it figured out at the beginning of your career. You're just not. And so try the risky thing that may be a little bit over the top, but it really clicks with you. It resonates with who you are as a unique individual.
Today on episode 67, I'm pleased to announce our guest, Lisa Litherland. As a co-founder and CEO of Social Optics, a company that helps teens create communication toolkits to elevate social emotional well-being, Social Optics teaches strategies to middle and high school students using a critical thinking framework to align with their identity. She has worked as an electrical engineer in the power substation industry and as an electronics technician at the FBI. She then joined CDW, where she sold technology, led teams, and built a corporate startup. Currently in charge of strategy, finance, legal, sales, marketing, and fundraising for Social Optics, she is a glue between helping districts and school administrations support their students and peers. So thank you so much, Lisa, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. And you did an incredible introduction. I've realized that I've done so many things in my career that sometimes I forget about some of them. So let me put a little asterisk and add on to that list. I've also worked for a software development firm. I worked for Zoom for a little while during the pandemic, so during their hyper growth stage. And then also, I've done some venture capital work, so investing in startups from that side. So I've done the investment side, and now I'm doing the operational side of a startup. In addition to that, I'm a mom of two young kids. I've got a son who's 4 and a daughter who's 2. I've got a long-term partner of 11 years, and she's Puerto Rican. So we've got Spanish cartoons playing all the time in the background and English as well. So it's just a really nice, wild blend happening here all the time. And I love it.
I absolutely love that. So my question for you is, tell us a bit about your career path.
Sure, absolutely. So, I was going to start in college, but I think I'll go back even a little bit further, many, many years ago when I was in high school. Um, you know, I loved math. We didn't really have engineering classes back then, but I was on the math team and I loved that. And what I loved about it was that there was one right answer. And I love just the clarity in that. And when I figured it out, I knew I had it. And there was something very satisfying about that with math, especially algebra. Love, love, love algebra. So I decided to go into electrical engineering for my undergraduate degree at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. And so I got my bachelor's degree there. And then right out of school, I worked as an electrical engineer for an architectural engineering firm doing design work around power substations. And then I transitioned into working for a construction company that was actually doing the builds of those substations. So I did that for a while. And then, I graduated right after 9/11 happened. And so I was feeling very patriotic, as many of us were. and I applied to work for the FBI. And it was a long process to get approved and go through all the background checks, but I finally got in. And so I worked for the FBI, doing electronics work for them. I'll kind of leave it at that, if you will. But so I did that for a while. By the way, feel free to jump in if you have any questions along the way. I don't mind at all. But then I found my way into technology sales. And I just loved taking my background in engineering and technology and then talking to people about it. Like there was something about it that I just loved. It really fit my outgoing personality. And so I did that. I did sales for 6 years, and then I transitioned into a management role. And then I found innovation. I'm like, I like this stuff. How do I do this? So I became a corporate entrepreneur, building out a new business within the corporation. So I did that. From there, I transitioned to working for a design firm that built out software. So that's where I learned about the agile methodology and design sprints and all of that. And then I transitioned over to Zoom, where again, I got to work in that hyper growth um, phase of an organization to see how an organization can just move incredibly quickly, which just absolutely blew my mind. And then now I'm working as co-founder and CEO of Social Optics. As you mentioned, we're building a communication toolkit for middle and high school students to help, build critical thinking skills and help them with social emotional well-being. So that's kind of the journey along in there. I did some venture capital along the way, but the theme throughout it all is learning, taking a growth mindset, always looking for things that interested me. And I think that's a good thing for your listeners to keep in mind is, what does interest me, and check it out, pursue it.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love listening to your story. I mean, you had so many cool things that really just happened, different roles sprinkled in. First, you were a venture capitalist, so you were on like the investing side of things. And then now you're the co-founder of Social Optics, where you're on the operational side of things. And you also worked at the FBI and Zoom, so you kind of face like a lot of cool, hyper growth and cool patriotism activities there. I absolutely loved your story about how you kind of transitioned throughout, your whole professional journey, and I love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so my question for you is what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
I have so many directions I want to take this. How much time can I take up? I'm just kidding. But I mean, the first thing I would say is don't try to be like anyone else. That's something where, over the years, I learned that the real magic happens where you can be your own unique, or for me at least, where I could be my own unique, awkward, weird, goofy self. And that's where I found that I found my happiness when I really leaned into that. Like you can absolutely look at people doing cool things, and I'd say learn from them. Talk to them. Certainly, reach out to people doing things that you're interested in. Um, you'll find, and I've found that, reaching out on LinkedIn, that's how we connected. And that's a great way, today, to connect with all kinds of people. So if you can find people doing things that spark your interest, reach out to them, talk to them, find out how they started doing that, whatever that thing is that you're interested in, and find out more information. There's also a concept called ikigai. It's a Japanese concept. And what that does is it takes what you love, what you're good at, what you can make money with, and what the world needs, And when you combine all of those pieces, that's where you can find your sweet spot and your magic, right? And true satisfaction in what you're doing. So I'd recommend that for the listeners, as you're thinking about, what do I want to do in the future, that's a great place to start. Don't try to, as much as I love STEM, don't do it because you think it's a good idea or because it's a popular buzzword right now. What I will say though is I am so incredibly grateful for my background and my focus on the mathematics, on the engineering. I got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. And what that did for me was that gave me an incredibly strong background in problem solving, right? And so I don't do engineering work anymore. That's not what I do. But I solve problems every day, every day. And by studying the engineering, I am able to apply that to all kinds of different situations. And so I'm incredibly grateful to have that background.
I absolutely love that. I mean, the biggest thing that you just said right now was to just focus on yourself and find your sweet spot, because you have to live life in a way that's meaningful to you. And the only way to do that is to let yourself be free and become who you want to be. Like, stop trying to mold yourself to be like everybody else when in reality, you have that, you have that magic sweet spot, and you shouldn't try. Putting that off just to become someone else or to just fit in the crowd. It's okay if you're an outlier. It's okay if you're different from everyone else, but just embrace that.
It's a good thing. It really is. It makes you interesting.
Absolutely. And my question for you is, what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
Oh, such a good question. I'll take this from the perspective of a co-founder and CEO. There's a myth that someone in this position gets everything right and that they know how to do all the things. It's completely untrue, right? So, first off, I make mistakes all the time, and that's okay because that's how you learn. And so, as long as you learn from those mistakes and then improve from there, then you can just continue to get better and better. And the other piece is that idea that someone knows everything, and this isn't just in like a founder role or a CEO role. Even just looking at, you know my first job out of school, I thought my manager had all the answers and knew what he was doing, and could just direct me, right? So it's not true. Everybody's trying to figure it out, and you don't have to have all the answers. In fact, I'd argue most of the best leaders don't have all the answers, but being able to keep a learning agile approach, or what's also called a growth mindset, you can go either figure out how to do the thing you need to do, or you can go find someone that can do the thing that you need to do, and they can either teach you, or you could partner up with them and they can do that part, and you can focus back to the part that you really love, and you focus on that and partner with the person that can do the other piece.
Absolutely. I really liked what you said right there because, nobody really knows everything. They don't know like the answer to every single question. You can consider yourself to be an expert, but you don't have to be like 100% right on every single question. There's really no person that fits that criteria. So just know that you don't have to fill that shoe of, being the person that knows every single answer, always, answering every single question. You don't have to be that, and it's okay to kind of not know things. It's okay to learn things on the job. And yeah, it's okay to just know that, embrace it. All right. And another question that I have for you is, if you could step into my shoes or younger self, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
Great question. So the question would be, how should girls approach belonging in STEM, and not only in STEM, but in life in general. Um, so belonging is something that I think about a lot. It's so looking back at when I was really, really focused on the engineering aspect. In my electrical engineering classes, I was one of a handful of girls in the class. Um, that's how it was then. And from everyone I've talked to, it's still pretty much that way. When I look at my first three jobs out of college, um, I was one of very few women. And when I worked at the FBI, I was the only woman in the building that I worked in, which, I mean, talk about not feeling like belonging. I looked around and I'm like, okay, I'm surrounded by a bunch of guys. What am I doing here? But, that leads me to, that's okay. Learn what you can learn from it. If it's a passion, follow it. But also, I urge you to find your people. And they may not be right there where you want them to be or right there where you expect them to be. But sometimes you have to expand out and go find your people other places. And that could be through meetup groups, it could be through chat groups, it could be reaching out to people through social media and making connections that way. I'm a big LinkedIn fan, so I've made so many friends and connections through LinkedIn just with other people doing things that I find interesting. Um, and so I urge your listeners to not stay confined to what's in your immediate vicinity, but really look out to find other people doing the things that you're interested in. They're out there. I guarantee they're absolutely out there. There are groups of people interested in everything, stuff I hadn't even imagined and I can't even think of right now, right? Um, but that not only allows you to make connections, but it also opens the door to opportunity that you might not otherwise have. And so, of course, be safe. You got to absolutely be safe. Don't go meeting a bunch of strangers in real life that you've met on the internet. But, like, also don't hesitate to reach out, and you'll find that a lot of people, especially leaders, executives that are further along in their career, love the opportunity to give back. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask about those things that you're interested in. If you find the right people, they love to mentor, they love to give back, and that's a great way to expand your world.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're like the only person in a room, like just what you were, in the FBI setting, you were the only girl. Um, Even if that's so, you can always find your own people, and there are gonna be others there. There's gonna probably gonna be other women who are, the only person themselves in a room. There are other people out there willing to make connection and forge lifelong friendships. And you can learn so many things from them. You can get so many cool opportunities, and you could get some cool things like mentorships and other things that you wouldn't have known of if you hadn't reached out to them.
Yeah, and even reflecting back to like college, right? There's organizations like the Society of Women Engineers, right? That wasn't directly in the classes I was taking, but it was a broader group where I could find other girls going through the same thing and make some really great connections that way.
Absolutely. And my question for you is, what are the best resources / books that have helped you find your career path?
Oh, there's a lot of them. So I absolutely am a lifelong learner. And so there's so many different sources out there. Probably the biggest one right now is just YouTube. I mean, there's so much information out there. And I'll be honest, all right, I use YouTube to learn how to do all kinds of things, like I need to, you know, fix something at my house. I'll look it up, or, I'm figured out how to do the Rubik's Cube for the first time. They've got videos for that. It's fantastic, right? So it's a great source of information. As far as books go, one of my favorite books is it's from Marcus Buckingham. It's called Go Put Your Strength to Work. And I love that book. It reads like a workbook. And what it does is it goes back to that ikigai concept that I talked about. But what Marcus does is he has you go through and identify your strength, defined as things that just really you like to do, you get excited about doing. When you do them, you lose track of time because you're having so much fun doing them, and you're just in a good state, right? So he has you identify those. And then on the flip side, he has you identify your weaknesses, which he defines as not necessarily things that you're bad at, right? Because you could be good at something, but if you really don't like it, that's not a strength. That could fall in the weakness area. But there's things that all of us we just don't like to do, and we end up procrastinating and putting off and complaining about. And so he helps you identify both of those, and then to really zoom in on what are those things that I do want to do. And that's incredibly helpful when you're looking at, okay, what do I want to study in college perhaps, or what type of career do I want to go into? Or if you're already in a career, okay, these are the things I'm doing in my job, and these are the things that I'm doing, but I really don't like. And to help you figure out how to do more of the stuff that you like. Because guess what? When you're actively working in your strength areas, you're going to naturally do a better job of those things because you like doing it, you're in a better mood doing it, you excel in doing it. You're more likely to go do your own research about how to do that thing better or faster, or to add more value in that type of work because you like doing it so much. So that's been incredibly impactful. Um, I will plug my own book real quick. So I wrote a book myself. It's called Live Your Passion. It's all about moving from the corporate world into the entrepreneurial world. So that's a piece. And I also work with a career coach. So I work with a career coach, Alana Golan. She's fantastic and has helped me really fine tune in on some of those pieces that we've talked about here, right? So I think that's a piece to kind of keep in mind, that you may know what you need to do, you may know what you like should do to help level yourself up, but sometimes you just need a coach there to help you through it, right? So I'd say that's a big piece of it as well. And I'm always learning, I'm always growing. um, and especially in this role as a startup founder, I'm doing many different things that I've never done before, so I have to go learn them. And Google's great, great place to go look for additional resources. Now there's Chat GPT that can help you out with that, right? So get to the resources faster, get the information faster so you can start putting it into practice. Because book learning something is one thing, learning it through experience application is a totally different thing. So I would encourage everyone who's listening is, if you want to learn how to do something, just jump in. So
100% agreed. Like, if you want to learn how to do something, then do it by practice, not by reading, because it's going to give you so many more actual tools to learn, because you're not only physically learning it, you're actually doing it in practice, which is much more beneficial. Yeah, so my question for you is what do you think is a vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning it, and what was your life after learning it?
Sure. So no one cares about your career as much as you do. I think that's so important. It's not that people are trying to be mean. It's not. It's just everyone's focused on their own experience, right? And so when I was younger, I thought, okay, I'm going to work this job. And if I do a good job at it, someone's going to come over and tap me on the shoulder and say, Lisa, you did such a great job. Congratulations, you've been promoted. Um, it doesn't work that way. So you are in charge of your own career. Um, and that includes your own education as well, because education is a part of your career. And you might even argue it's more important there because that leads you into your opportunities, right? So you have to take charge of that and you have to be the number one advocate for yourself. So that's determining, like, hey, these are the things that I want to study and that interest me. And so I'm going to figure out a way to do that. And not everyone has the same opportunity for that. I realize that. So whether that is going to college or going to trade school or jumping right into your career, it's you are in charge of that. And there's kind of going along with that, don't wait for someone to give you permission to do something, because you just you won't get it, or you won't get it fast enough, or it'll never come, right? So just again, go do it, figure out a way, leverage some of the free resources that are online. And there's lots of opportunities to gain experience without necessarily leveraging a job. So there's lots of opportunities for volunteering, for doing side projects. It's easier than ever now, especially with generative AI, to start a business. Um, and I I know our audience is kind of at that high school level, but you can do that too. Like, the resources are, it's so much easier to start a business, to build a web page, to make a product. The creator community is phenomenal. I look at what you're doing. You're running a podcast. That's incredible, right? So like, it's incredible the opportunities that are out there. So figure out what that thing is that interests you or that you want to pursue, and just go for it. You're in charge. Don't wait for permission or approval. Just go try it out. Experiment. See if you like it or not. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Maybe it'll lead to something completely different that you never even knew existed before.
Absolutely. I want to touch base onto what you said. There's not going to be some type of hand that just comes, picks you out of nowhere and gives you a promotion. You kind of have to leverage the things that come your way, the opportunities that you might not see as opportunities, to kind of do your own research, do your own homework, and be the journalist you are and ask those questions. And over time, you will get something along the way from, the products of your own work. But just remember that you're kind of your own helper. You have to be your own chariot rider. You have to be the person who's in charge of your own life, and because no one else will be.
And one more piece on that. As girls, as women, and also in certain cultures, we don't feel quite as comfortable talking about ourselves. And it's important to talk about the work that you're doing. Because if you're doing something phenomenal and you don't talk about it, no one's going to know that you're doing it. So it's okay. There's it's not always bragging. There are ways to talk about and share what you're doing so that other people know about it. Other people benefit from the value that you're created, and also so that opportunities open up for you.
100% agreed. And because we have a little bit of time left, I'm going to squeeze in
Sure.
one more question, which is what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career path?
I would say take risks early and follow your interests. You don't have to have it all figured out, especially early in your career. Do the thing that scares you a little bit, um, because you don't have to have it all figured. You're not going to have it figured out at, at the beginning of your career. You're just not. And so try the risky thing that may be a little bit over the top, and but it really clicks with you. It resonates with who you are as a unique individual, and follow that. I wish I had taken some more risks when I was a little bit younger in my career, um, because I also career wise, loyalty, it's not it's not what it used to be when my parents were in the workforce. You know, my dad worked for the same company for his entire 35-year career. That just doesn't happen anymore, right? And especially with, all the tech layoffs that have happened in the last year, you, loyalty is not guaranteed. So take the risk, follow your passion, and even if everything falls apart, you will have learned something and you will have been true to yourself. That's never a bad thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for being here. Before we end off, do you have any last words to the audience?
Um, I would say go for it. Girls can do amazing things. Do not limit yourself, because we need so many more girls and women doing hard things. And certainly feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much for this time.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I absolutely love talking to you. And here are my 3 cents on this episode with Lisa. 1, individuality and authenticity. Lisa emphasizes the importance of being true to yourself and not trying to be like anyone else. Success often comes when you embrace your uniqueness and leverage your individual strengths and interests. This advice underscores the value of authenticity in one's career. 2, ikigai and purpose. She mentions the concept of ikigai, which involves finding the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what you can make with money, and what the world needs. This concept can be a valuable framework for career planning and decision making, emphasizing the importance of aligning with your passions, skills, and purpose. And 3, self-advocacy and taking risks. She highlights the importance of taking charge of your own career and education. Waiting for others to recognize your efforts or waiting for opportunities to come to you may not be effective. Instead, advocating for yourself and taking calculated risks can lead to personal and professional growth. Thus, that concludes the episode for this week. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Zito, you're listening to Aarna Sahu, the host of Aarna's News. Toodles!